Okay, so we're going to do a quick little demonstration of how to take an observation in learning journals. So we're logged into our demonstration account here. We have this set up for a typical private nursery that would have a baby room, a toddler room, and a 3 to 5 room. These are just ways to organize your child profiles. You can call these anything you want, and you can have different pictures on here whatever you need. So if I click into our 3 to 5s room, I'll see all the profiles for the children here. There's no limit to the number of children you can have in a room or a class. Each one of these represents the child's folder or profile or whatever it is you currently use in your nursery or school. If I click into Alistair here, what we see are all his recent observations, and they go from newest to oldest, so we can scroll down and we can see all his most recent observations. Each observation has got a description. This is the part entered by the practitioner or the teacher. It tells you who has been involved in creating this observation, if there's been multiple people. Over on the right hand side, we've got some evidence in the form of photos, but you can use videos as well, and you can have up to 4 photos per observation. There's a section for the children to let you know how they felt about what they've done. We call that child's voice. Parents can log into their own child's profile. They can click on this like button to acknowledge they've seen the observation, and as well they can leave a comment in this box down here to comment on what they think about what they've seen. So if we're on Alistair's profile here, let's imagine he's doing something we want to observe. We just click on Add Observation. That takes us into the process, which we've tried to keep as simple as possible, as we do know that there are varying levels of comfort with technology. All you have to do is follow the instructions. You can't go and wipe out all the children or delete your entire account. Just follow the instructions and fill out the boxes. So the first one here asks, what was I doing? This is where you talk about what you're practically seeing in the observation. So we'll keep it simple for this demonstration and just say that Alistair was taking part in a number activity. The next box is about the learning. So previously we only had one box for your description. Now we've separated that so you can actually more clearly detail the learning that's being observed here. And you can record that in this box. So we'll just say that Alistair was learning to count to 10. So keeping it simple again. We do have spell check built in here as well, so that will be useful for many people. The next section is the child's voice. The next section is child's voice. This is also optional. The way we use this in our nursery is we ask the child how they felt about what they've just been doing. And if they say anything, we can note that down in this box here. And they're also able to click on these faces to give you an idea of how they felt about what they've just done. There's an option to put in next steps as well. The idea would be that you would set a target or a goal based on what you've seen in the learning and description up above. The mistake that we made when we first started using our system was we would add a next step in for every single observation that we would take, which meant that we had lots and lots of observations for each next steps for each child, which was very difficult for us to keep on top of. So now what we do is we create 2 or 3 targets per term, and those are what we're working towards. How you manage this is obviously up to you in your individual schools and nurseries, but that way works for us. The date of the activity is automatic, so it's today's date, but if it's something that you hadn't managed to write up, you can always backdate. Then you come to uploading your photo or your video. So if you're using an iPad, this is where it will activate the iPad's camera, and when I'm doing it through my computer here, I can just upload any images that I want to. So I'll pick one of a koala, one of a fox, and I'll do one more of a cheetah. So as I say, you can have up to 4 photos or videos for an observation, and this is what you would use for your evidence. Moving on to the next stage, this is where we connect it to a curriculum or a framework. So Alistair, our child here, is on our level of the curriculum. In Scotland, it's called the Curriculum for Excellence. In England, it would be the UIFS. The process is exactly the same. We're shown the different curricular areas, so health and well-being, numeracy and maths, etc. And down below, as we're in health and well-being, we all have all the health and well-being statements or outcomes. They're split into what they're called organisers or subheadings. So we've got activity and health, activity and sport, and all we need to do is attach an outcome to the observation based on what we've observed. And we do that with these green buttons down the right hand side. So I can add one in there, I can add another one in here. We can have as many of these as we want. You'll notice that some of these have numbers, so we've got some ones there and some zeros. These number ones tell us that this child has had one observation linked to this statement already. With a zero, we've got no evidence at all that we've experienced this part of the curriculum. So it gives you an idea of some coverage there. We can go across different areas, so we're in health and well-being, but we can jump into literacy and English, for example, and we can add in outcomes here. We can also go across different frameworks if you want to do that, depending on what you've activated in your account. So this child is on the hour level. If I check on this drop-down box, we can see we can move into pre-birth to 3 for younger children, for example, or even things such as milestones for complex support needs. It really depends on what you've activated in your account and what content or frameworks you want to access. All the outcomes that we've chosen appear at the top of the page, and before we move on, we're asked to make an assessment. The default is a traffic light system, red, amber, green. You can actually change these, the terminology here, so it could be emerging, expected, exceeding, or developing, consolidating, secured, for example. You make the selection just with these little buttons here. It's important to note that the parents, when they log in, they don't see any assessments that you've done. This is for your internal tracking and monitoring. So now we've got our outcomes added, we can move on to the next stage, which varies depending on your framework. On the EYFS, this would be characteristics for effective learning. For curriculum for excellence, for example, we have got what we call progression pathways. But again, the format is the same. These are various additional forms of content, maybe in the form of I can statements or milestones or whatever your local authorities ask for. If you do want custom content, we can actually upload that for you. The process is the same. We use these green buttons down the right hand side to attach this to our observation, and then we choose red, amber, green from the list here. We move on to our final stage, which is about publishing the observation and connecting it to previous observations. So down the right hand side here we have what we call our active next steps. If you recall, in our first stage, what we could have done was added a next step to this child's profile. Any active next steps for this child are detailed here. So when I said we had hundreds in our nursery, this is where you may see that it becomes unworkable, and it's why it's a good idea to limit the number of next steps that you're working on. What the system is asking is, does the observation we've just done, Alistair was taking part in a number activity, does it contribute towards or achieve any of the next steps that he's working on? And we can see we've got a next step here to continue to work on your numbers and successfully learn how to count to 10. We can say that yes, this observation links up with this particular next step. We can choose to say the next step's been completed, in which case we will no longer see this when we're taking future observations, or we can leave the next step unchecked, which means we're still working towards it because it may take several attempts for a child to achieve it. We can then choose down the bottom whether we want to publish the observation or save it for later. If an observation is published, a parent would be able to see this. If you've published something and you want to make changes, you can always unpublish it, you can edit it, and you can save it for later as well. A very useful feature is publishing the observation for multiple children. This would be used in group activities when you don't want to have to go through this process for lots of children. So the example I talk about is in our nursery we had the fire brigade came to see us, so everybody was involved in that. When we choose to publish for multiple children, we're shown a list of all the children in that room or class, and we can choose from this list. And so let's say that Abby, Graham, Anya and Isabel were all involved in this observation. This will copy everything that we've done to their profiles as well. We do have to be careful because if we note we have used Alistair's name, anything that's in these boxes up here will be copied over. So the way around that, we've got a little instruction up here which you can use. It's always here, and it says to replace a child's name in the box below with the code first name. So really simply, all you do is you write in first name inside square brackets where you want that name to be replaced. So we'll do that here. And what this does is when we copy it over, we will replace this with the first name either, so it'll be Abby was taking part in a number activity, or Graham or Anya or Isabel was learning to count to 10. And this lets you personalize that observation. We click on begin, this copies everything over, and that is our observation completed. And we can just jump into Alistair's observations now. And here's the observation we've just done. We've got our evidence on the right-hand side. We can click on any of these pictures to see them. We can edit or make changes to the content directly from these boxes here if we want to. And we can click on our Outcomes and Progression Pathways tab to see all the content that we've added and the ratings there. Hopefully that's straightforward about how you take an observation, and I promise you once you've done this a couple of times, it is second nature and you'll be zipping through it in no time.